Average coaches have quotes. Good coaches have a plan, and elite, exceptional coaches have a system.
Tim Kight died peacefully this past Saturday, May 4th. Tim was the founder and chairman of Focus 3, a firm whose mission is to help organizations around the world align the power of leadership, culture, and behavior to achieve exceptional results. A dynamic communicator, Tim focused on the critical factors that distinguish great organizations from average organizations. He delivered a powerful message on the behavior skills that accelerate execution. Tim Kight was part of Urban Meyer's Ohio State staff, and the two went 83-9 during their time working together, including a national championship in 2014. His work with the Ohio State football program has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Sports Illustrated, ESPN, and in the New York Times bestseller Above the Line. He is the author of several high-impact training programs, Lead Now, The Power of Culture, Attitude Matters, and The R Factor. His son Brian, who has co-hosted over 40 episodes of Coach and Coordinator, said of his father via X, "My dad Tim Kight died peacefully in his sleep last night. He was so many things to so many people, to so many of you. Whether or not you got to meet him, you felt him. He was that kind of presence. But to me, he was just dad, and that was everything." Urban Meyer also lamented Kight's passing, reflecting on their time together via X. "I met Tim Kight in the spring of 2013. His impact on me personally, on our staff, and on our team was profound. He was a passionate competitor and loved helping people get better. A great leader, teacher, mentor, and friend. God's mercy and grace are on the Kight family." While I was at USA Football, we partnered with Focus 3 to teach coaches the systems he created, and I was honored to have known and learned from Tim Kight. He was a man of impact who, through his teaching, positively influenced thousands and thousands of people to utilize the systems he created to instill cultures within their organization, producing positive experiences in people's lives. I know that he's impacted many coaches who listen to this podcast. Today's episode of Coach and Coordinator Podcast is from the archives. In January of 2018, Tim and Brian joined me live at the AFCA convention in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we discussed the importance of organizing, implementing, and simplifying systems for leadership and culture. Here's our discussion.
Great to be here with these guys. Brian's going to be speaking tomorrow at 8:50 in the morning, 8:50 in the morning in the general session. This is a great opportunity to talk to these guys about our thousands of coaches here. What is it when we look at these coaches? Just everybody, they're around here. They're looking at all the same things. They're learning the same things. They're trying to do the same things. What sets those guys apart who have fun for the top? No, I was listening to Bronco Mendenhall just now in like the big session, and he was saying something. Right now, think about all the mental stuff, all the tips and techniques that won't get implemented, won't get done because they don't get organized properly, or because they tried to take too much and they didn't simplify and execute. So the thing I'm walking away with here is, what are you pulling in? How are you simplifying it so you can execute it? And to do that, you have to organize it. Obviously, we call it a system, but you have to organize that into, because there's so much great stuff here, but it'll overwhelm you if you're not careful.
I had that very conversation earlier today with a coach that grabbed me and said, "Hey, recognize you guys. Thanks for your social media, your podcast, etc." We had a conversation, and I reminded him that average coaches have quotes. Good coaches have a plan, and elite, exceptional coaches have a system. And I asked him that question: what system are you using to translate the things that you hear at the conference to take it back to your program with clarity and simplicity? He looked at me like, "I don't have a system." And I said, "Well, we talk about what you might want to do." So I agree completely with Brian. You have to have and not just any system. It has to be clear, simple, and actionable.
Has to be the right one.
Yeah.
But, well, I'll give you a good example about that. You talk about this all the time. A coach who's just talking about the power of mindset. And the first thing I look for in assistants is that I want to see your mindset. So I asked myself, how many coaches listening? It's in the big groups. There's 3,000-4,000 people in there. And I bet you every coach wrote down, first thing that they'll want to know is mindset. Well, how many coaches have a system for having a great mindset, let alone an elite top 10% mindset. But I bet they all know the word. I mean, you've been big on that for a long time about mental toughness, about what coaches say.
The same coach I talked to, I had that conversation. I said, do you often tell your players be mentally tough? He goes, all the time. I said, you'd show them how. He said, I said, no, you don't. No, I don't.
You run them, you put them in the weight room.
If you want to frustrate, you want to frustrate an athlete, tell him to do something and don't show him how, and then get mad at him when he doesn't do it. That'll frustrate your athletes real fast. That's a culture killer, in fact.
Absolutely. When we think of systems, like you can go to this and you're going to get all kinds of great ideas. Now you have to sort through that because there are some good things out there that you can implement. So what is the key? When you find some of those good things, how do you make sure you're fitting it into a system instead of just kind of grab bagging every idea?
Well, you have to have the system first. Yeah. You have to decide what your system is. And again, let me go back. And he said, it's not just any system. It has to be an effective system. Our criteria, it's got to be clear. Well, it has to be accurate. It's got to be effective in the sense that it's accurate with the physics, but then it's got to be clear, easy to understand. It's got to be simple. Can't have too many parts, and it has to be actionable. Have people translate it quickly into actual action.
That's something early on. You and I talked about podcasts right away from the very beginning. On yours, obviously we talk about it on ours, but that's why I think people have. I know that's why people gravitated to our system is because when just in our personal conversations, the system. A system works when you find yourself applying it to other things and other environments in different environments. When you take E plus R equals O and you hear it as a coach, but then the first place you're really digging into it is in navigating through a difficult night at home with your wife or, with your husband for the spouses or with your kids, or when you are lowering your stress level from a booster meeting or your teaching job. And that's where you're using it. That's how you know you've got a system. Because a plan that is specific to football or specific to a career, a system you'll find it's universal. And what it does is it helps you execute simple skills in complex environments. And systems are what help you produce the results.
So another one, I'll give you an example. So he gave the behavioral system of E plus R equals O. That's a 3-part system that's clear, simple, and actionable every place in life. I'll give you another one. Same way. Trust. What's your system for building trust? Every single football coach says trust is essential for the success of our program. But then what is trust? What's your system for understanding and building trust? And can you use that system outside of football someplace else? So we've discovered over the years, and I taught this years ago before we even started working with football, was trust is 3 things. It's character behavior, it's competence behavior, and it's connection behavior. So your trust is built by repeated behavior over time of character, competence, and connection. And it's a system, and you know that all 3 are necessary. So 2 of those things are insufficient for trust. And those are not, and by the way, just because something is simple doesn't mean it's easy. Right. Simple and easy are not the same thing. I would even contend, and I know he and I are in complete agreement, the more complex it is, the more difficult it is to implement. So since it's difficult to implement, all the more reason why clear, simple, and action that is appropriate.
And as coaches, we talk about simplicity all the time because the only way we're going to be able to be successful in a game that can be very chaotic,
dynamic game, right?
It's dynamic. We have to be simple. Our systems on the field have to be simple. That applies to what I'm talking about here, building leadership and building a culture as well.
Yeah. I guess I come back to, I was with 35 on a 35 yesterday, and I come back and tell everybody the same thing that I told them. If you have
real system, quick, there was no 60 over 60 yesterday, was there?
60 over 60?
Yeah, 60 over 60. That's what I would have been, right, Ian?
Absolutely.
Okay, but they didn't have it. Had they had it, I'd have been discriminating about people.
Want you to know. I make a joke that they did have it scheduled, but not everybody could make it.
See what you did there? Yeah, funny boy.
But this is take your dad to work day. I told the 35 on a 35 yesterday. There's systems here for everything. They put so much weight into putting systems into this stuff. And coaches will talk about how important leadership is. But then you ask them what a system is and they don't. So yeah, so that's the value of organizing this, putting in a system, simplification. just don't make the mistake that a quote is not a system. Writing down 15 things isn't a system. It's a collection of parts. You end up with a Frankenstein of a leadership approach. I don't know if I like that analogy, but it's like you bolted a bunch of things on. You can't put a Ferrari part with a Jeep part with a Chevy
a list of attributes.
Yeah.
Not the same thing as a system.
No.
I think that's important because I've asked a lot of coaches and business leaders, what is your system for leadership? And they say, oh, here it is. It's a list of 15 things. And they're very proud of and when you read the list, all 15 are great. There's a 15 really.
If you executed them just like they are supposed to be executed, but that's not what this is.
And I just listened carefully because there's a huge difference between a list of attributes or characteristics and a system. And that difference is the difference.
What's interesting is there's no list you'll ever see of those things. And you'd say, no, that's not important. No, that's not important. No, you shouldn't do that. The question is whether or not writing 15 things down. And this is maybe the point. If you're not currently doing those 15 things, like what would be on that list? Discipline, resilience,
The list for leadership?
Yeah, like what would be the 15 things?
Lead by example, be a person of character.
Responsibility, integrity,
responsible.
trust, mental toughness, physical toughness, effort, attitude, intensity, right?
Yep.
So one, if everybody's already doing those at an elite level, you don't really need the list, right? So if people aren't currently doing them, here's the question to ask. Does writing it down on a list teach someone how to execute it better? That's where the system comes. That's why organizing it is so important.
So there's the second piece. Having a system by itself won't do it either. What the system does is it focuses you on what's essential, and then the system must show you the mechanics of how to. So we just met yesterday with a business client that just hired us, and I asked them, well, what is it about our system that they like? And they said, you guys don't do theory. You guys teach us how to. You teach us how to. And I said, that's exactly right. I'm not interested in what books you've read. I'm not interested in what posters are on the wall. I'm not interested and one thing, what do you do? Here's the standard. This is what great leadership looks like according to the system. Do you or do you not do that? And if you don't, where are the gaps and how are you going to get better?
Thank you, Tim, for your passion in helping others. Thank you for the far-reaching lessons that will positively impact the leaders of our game for generations to come. You will be missed.